A very warm welcome to everyone for joining us today. I am Arpit Benjwal, lead analyst from the mobility vertical at BIS Research. It is my honor to present you today's webinar Inside the EV Batteries of Tomorrow: Rapid Charging, Greater Range and Lower Costs. BIS Research has been tracking the electric vehicles market since the past 4 years. While several battery technologies have been introduced over the years, the EV industry is still struggling for an efficient battery solution to outperform the IC engine vehicles. The immense interest shown by professionals and students from organizations across the electric vehicles value chain through registrations show the amount of potential everyone sees in electric vehicles. So, for today's discussion, we have an esteemed list of speakers. Firstly, we have our guest speaker, Mr. Adalberto Maluf. Adalberto is the Director of Marketing, Sustainability and New Business for BYD Brazil, as well as a Director for ABVE, which is Brazilian Association of Electric Vehicles, and he is also a member of AB Solar Board, which is Brazilian Association of Photovoltaic Solar Energy. A very warm welcome to Adalberto. So, as an in-house expert, we have with us Ajay Saxena, BIS research analyst and a keen electric vehicles enthusiast. He has authored multiple market intelligence reports in electric vehicles related research areas and has been widely commended by various industry opinion leaders for his incisive analysis and recommendations. I thank both the panelists for their gracious presence. Welcome to both of you. In the next 20 minutes, we are all keen to learn from your experience about inside the EV batteries of tomorrow. And towards the end of the discussion, I'll be opening the panel to the audience for a quick question and answer session. I would request everyone in the audience to kindly mute your phones during the webinar and type in the questions towards the end of the webinar. We will try and answer as much questions as the time permits, and any questions that will not be able to answer today shall be reverted offline very soon to each one of you. Having said that, let me open this panel for discussion and invite thoughts from Mr. Ajay Saxena. Over to you, Ajay.
Thank you, Arpit. Good afternoon, everyone. In today's webinar, I will cover about the need for electric vehicles, the trends in EV adoption, performance evaluation of EVs versus IC engine vehicles, and battery chemistry development. Then, I'll gladly hand over to Mr. Adalberto to discuss about the future possibilities for EVs and EV batteries. To begin with, I would like to talk about the need for electric vehicles. The excessive greenhouse gas emissions and the overdependence on fossil fuel resources has led to a global sustainability crisis. 37.1 gigatons of greenhouse gas emissions were registered in 2018. This was 50% more than the emissions which were registered in the year 2000. Moreover, the global crude oil demand in 2018 was 99 million barrels per day. And if the consumption continues at a similar pattern, the crude oil reserves will be completely depleted in the next 55 years. The automotive industry has been a major contributor to this crisis. The automotive industry contributes 15% of the global greenhouse gas emissions and 30% of global crude oil demand. Due to this excessive carbon footprint, the automotive industry has been closely monitored by regulatory bodies. Several regulations and directives such as CAPE standards and Paris Agreement have made it obligatory for the automotive industry to transform itself in order to decrease its carbon footprint. To achieve emission reduction, the industry has looked at two alternatives: the adoption of lightweight materials and the electrification of drivetrain. While the possibility to reduce the greenhouse gas emission through lightweight material adoption is only 15 to 20%, The electrification of drivetrain can completely nullify greenhouse gas emission from the automotive industry. As vehicle stakeholders have already invested more than $150 billion between 2014 and 2018 to ensure market development. Okay, so the global EV sales have been steadily rising over the past few years. The global EV sales have grown sevenfold between 2014 and 2018. Reduction in battery cost, improvement in battery technology, and development in EV infrastructure helped the annual EV sales in 2017 cross the 1 million mark for the first time. In 2018, the EV sales crossed the 2 million mark, which clearly suggests that the EV market is fast growing. Between 2014 and 2018, the market for pure battery electric vehicles has grown rapidly as the share in the global EV market increased from 52% in 2014 to 70% in 2018. The government incentives in the form of subsidies and tax exemptions have been a key factor that have driven the market for BEV. So yeah, the Asia Pacific region contributes the largest share in the global EV market in 2018. China alone accounted for more than 50% of the global sales in 2018. If we have a close look at the current sales and the set targets for each region, the EV market in Asia Pacific and Americas must grow more than 9-folds, while the EV market in Europe, Middle East, and Africa needs to grow 6-folds if they are to achieve the sales targets that they have set for 2025. Therefore, the EV market must grow several folds in order to achieve such ambitious targets. Government support has been a key factor that has contributed to the increasing EV sales. While it is important to have government support, but building a market that is overly dependent upon subsidies and tax exemptions does not present a very sustainable business model for EV manufacturers. To achieve ambitious targets, the current EVs need to continue improving in terms of performance in order to become the vehicle of choice over IC engine vehicles. In terms of range, the average range of battery electric vehicles has improved from 130 kilometers in 2014 to 200 kilometers in 2018. But an average IC engine vehicle has a range of 650 kilometers, which suggests that there is a gap which needs to be filled. Similarly, in terms of charging time, the fastest time to fully charge a battery electric vehicle has reduced from 3 hours in 2014 to 30 minutes in 2018. But the time to refuel a gasoline-based vehicle is only 5 minutes. Vehicle range and charging or refueling time are key performance parameters that have become major bottlenecks for EV adoption. Yeah. So in terms of cost, the average price of top-selling IC engine vehicles is much lower than top-selling battery electric vehicles. While battery electric vehicles such as Tesla Model S and Tesla Model X are competitive with IC engine vehicles in terms of range, they cost 4 to 5 times of a similar IC engine vehicle. Thus, there is a need to reduce the cost of battery electric vehicles. Therefore, we must understand that the current state of the EV market is heavily dependent on government subsidies, and EVs currently lack in terms of technical performance. Therefore, reducing the cost of ownership and increasing value proposition for EVs are key areas where the stakeholders need to focus to drive EV adoption. BIS Research believes that the battery chemistry will play a critical role in overcoming these challenges. Looking at the current battery chemistries, nickel manganese cobalt, that is NMC lithium ion, is the preferred chemistry for majority EV manufacturers. Lithium iron phosphate, that is LFP, and nickel cobalt aluminum oxide that is the NCA lithium-ion batteries, these two chemistries also contribute a significant share to the global EV market. The large share of LFP and NCA batteries is largely due to their adoption by major OEMs such as BYD and Tesla respectively. Each battery chemistry has its own advantages and disadvantages, but it will be interesting to know how leading stakeholders develop these battery chemistries to solve the current issues with electric vehicles. So BYD has been a prominent company leading the global EV and EV batteries market. To discuss about how a leading company like BYD intends to overcome the challenges faced by the EV market, I would like to invite thoughts from a special guest speaker, Mr. Adalberto Maluf. Over to you, Adalberto.
Hello, Aleja. Thank you very much for the opportunity to be here speaking a little bit about emerging technologies, batteries, the electric vehicle revolution we are all living. And BYD, company which stands for Build Your Dreams, I think most of our audience here already know the history, but it's interesting to know how the three dreams that our founder, Xiaofu Wang, had 24 years ago have developed to deliver exactly what we are trying to do right now. So when he was a researcher from the Chinese government, the guy that created the cheapest cells for lithium batteries at that time, we grew up to become the first auto manufacturer to release a plug-in hybrid back in 2008. So we went from a very vertical production from IT industry. And as soon as we developed this new battery, this chemistry called the iron phosphate lithium batteries, he was confident enough to fulfill his second dream. So storage, affordable clean energy with solar and electric mobility. And then with that, we grew up to become the largest EV manufacturer in the world in the last 4 years, the largest producer of electric buses, the first company to roll out mass market electric buses, and more recently on light rail solutions. As cities get more congested, there is less space, lighter rail solutions have become a very good opportunity to integrate with electric vehicle, bicycle, no motorized transportation, and all the other areas. Next slide, please. So BYD Group is divided today in these 5 groups, from IT, where we still hold a very strong position producing for Samsung, Apple, Nokia, Motorola. But of course, battery is the heart of our technology. And it was naturally that the company that developed one of the safest chemistries that were there, the lithium iron phosphate, became such a high important player on both consumer cars and commercial vehicle solutions. So this is how BYD have been growing, trying to deliver and help companies and governments to reduce emission, reduce noise in big cities, improve public transportation, offering a long-term solution that you can generate your own electricity with solar, storage it efficiently in batteries, and also have electric mobility. Please, next slide. Well, as everybody know, lithium is probably the type of battery which we're gonna be seeing more. There's many different type of storage, from fuel cell, hydrogen, pump, hydro, ultracapacitors. But I think the chemical solutions became the most predominant right now. And the good thing is that there's many different chemistries out there. Each manufacturer has its own chemistry. Each one has its own advantage, its challenge. But we believe iron phosphate is the one that still poses the best opportunities for the future, as it has a very good range of energy density improvements in order to reach other type of batteries like NCM, NMC, which have been delivering higher density with a lower lifetime. Next, please. So battery is always this trade-off, you know, between density, let's say performance, which means autonomy, faster charging time, with cost and life cycle. So for the IT industry on a cell phone, probably lithium cobalt oxides will continue to play a major role. You know, nobody wants a heavier cell phone to carry around. And for e-bikes and some type of electric vehicles, especially the ones that are more for passenger, normal people, they don't drive that many kilometers, they don't use the vehicle so much, probably these other chemistries like lithium manganese, nickel, manganese, cobalt. There are many solutions that will continue to play a very important role. But we believe that the iron phosphate lithium solution will become predominantly used, especially for heavy duty vehicles or even for light vehicles, as it offers a lot of features of safety and sustainability, which somehow the other chemistries are trying to come, they're trying to improve, but they still have a longer way to go. Next slide, please. So the great advantage of our battery is that it has a much longer life cycle than any other chemistries. On labs, and of course, it's not for all applications, but we can very easily achieve more than 10,000 cycles, which is 25 years for these batteries. Of course, in a vehicle, you might not use all these 25 years. As capacity will go down, maybe, you know, you had 300 kilometers or 400 kilometers autonomy, it's not gonna be good enough for you. So, but we can take off this battery, reuse it at other applications like energy storage solutions for solar, for frequency regulation, and the battery will continue to play a major role. And this is a big difference between other chemistries, because when these other chemistries reach their kind of lifetime, they drop dramatically. And in a couple of months, they just stop working very well. But the iron phosphate, no, they have a very stable degradation. They don't have pollution. It's the only chemistry that allows full recycling. I think everybody knows BYD has developed already a big recycling facility in China. Of course, with the rising costs of all the EV materials, recycling will become major business for all the chemistries. But especially in our case, because of all these environmental and sustainable concerns, we have chosen this chemistry to be used on vehicles. Next slide, please. And iron phosphate, in our opinion, is the safest, more stable, and sustainable chemistry out there. Basically because it has a very strong thermal stability, you know? It's, of course, other chemistries are improving, they're also safe, but the lithium iron phosphate battery, it doesn't release oxygen. You know, it's very, very stable, up to 400, 500, even 600 Celsius, which is very good for most of the applications that we have right now. You know, it's the battery that has less thermal runaway, which makes it operating really well on very low temperature. Everybody might have seen, we have electric buses running from Finland or the coldest places in China, and also trucks and buses running at almost desert areas with more than 40, 50 degrees Celsius, which makes this chemistry very stable. As one of the guys that created lithium batteries, you know, our chairman, our founder, Xiaofu Wang, which United Nations gave awards as one of the lifetime achievements for sustainability in clean energy. He said that he had different chemistries out there. Most of them were better than iron phosphate in the beginning. But as soon as he developed the iron phosphate, which was able to have good energy density, better life cycle, but it was safe, then he realized the opportunities to move to all the areas would be there. Because, you know, you're putting people inside a bus or a truck, you know, we have 100 people, 50 people inside a bus. We cannot take any risk of batteries getting unstable, you know, maybe even burning or having problem in the future. Next slide, please. So, and this superior safety for iron phosphate batteries can be seen in these two graphics. One in the left, it shows that the battery doesn't have, it's extremely stable between 500 to 600 degrees Celsius, which is more than double or 3 times more than other chemistries. You know, you have your normal cell phone, you know, here in Brazil at Rio de Janeiro, if we leave the battery, our cell phone in the sun for more than half an hour, you see the impact of 40, 50 degrees Celsius on the battery. So the iron phosphate also creates this extra feature of being more stable. And it also doesn't release the same volume when heat generation goes, which makes it much safer and better relating explosions or any other items. Please. Well, for everybody that has been following up BYD and seeing our first vehicles around 10 years ago, we had very large batteries, around also 80 kilowatt hours, batteries 60 kilowatt hours, but the range was very small. It was, you know, 200 kilometers, 250 kilometers. But the thing is that even iron phosphate, the energy density has improved so much. Even here in Brazil, our factory here, we started using 1 density, and in 2 years increased more than 25%. This year we just came with a new chemistry that improves more 20% density. So right now, for example, this is an example of our new model EV Tang 600. We have, with almost the same battery as we used to have before, we are offering now almost 600 kilometers. And this is interesting because, well, NCM, NCA, all of them are good, you know, but the good part of this technological revolution is that people are trying solutions, you know. So people, some guys are putting more aluminum and reducing the cobalt. Some are increasing nickel and manganese. And this, so we all see these numbers, you know, of NCM 811 or 622 or 712, which is all the different share between nickel, cobalt, manganese, or iron phosphate, and this and that. And we have so many auto manufacturers putting big money, making huge investments in electric vehicle. So this is the beauty. Like, we don't know how it's going to be the future. You know, maybe there will be hydrogen will come faster. Maybe there will be solid polymers. There will be sulfur, titanite. There will be zinc air. I don't know. But what matters is that batteries are improving the range for electric vehicle with almost the same capacity. And this is extremely powerful in order to transform this market. Next slide, please. So, of course, EV solutions, they used to be kind of a challenge. You know, every time you were going to sell a bus or a forklift, oh, how am I going to charge this and that? But then we started to see that companies and people realized it's not that difficult, you know? Well, for a forklift, it's easy, you know? The guy already has electric forklift with lead acid. For example, our forklift here, the counterbalance, which won the IFC award, the first time a non-European company won the award of best forklift. We just improved the quality. So instead of charging 6 hours to operate 6 hours, we charge 2 and operate 16. It saves 30% comparing to other electric forklifts, 70% comparing to LPG. So, well, easy, you know, they're use it. But then when we go to light vehicles or heavy duty, there's always this concern, you know, is it going to be easy to charge or how it's going to happen? So initially, most of the markets, in our opinion, are going to start with fleets. So bus fleet, truck fleets, everything that the city has mandates, because it's urban transportation, it's solid waste management. There are very few garages. The operators are very little number. So it's easy. For example, we launched 15 electric buses here in São Paulo, and it's going to be a beautiful project because it has solar generation and it has the charging. And at that time, you know, some of our competitors, they came to the press and said, oh, look, if São Paulo's climate change bill, which require 100% fossil fuel in 20 years, if it became a reality, there would be no energy for all these 15,000 buses in São Paulo. And we made some calculations. The local energy utility, Enel, the Italian company, they made some calculations, said, look, this is bullshit. We can easily offer. They will charge during the night. You know, it's not a problem. Then the guy said, look, but the garage, if you charge 1,000 buses together, it's going to destroy the grid, and, you know, there will be a problem there. And the guys made some calculations, said, look, out of the 42 garages, only 4 of them have little things we have to improve, but it's easy. And the truth is that most of people will charge in their house during the night with slow chargers. Okay, we'll go up to 6, 7, 8 hours, but it's during the night, you know. During peak hour, maybe your vehicle will take off your house from the grid and it will charge during night when it's cheaper. But for a heavy duty vehicle, these solutions became so cost effective, especially when you integrate with solar, that they are helping even the payback of these vehicles. Next slide, please. So you can see, for example, here in the case of Brazil, this is one customer we have here in Campinas for 15 buses running. It's a very simple infrastructure. We just go there, put the charger. It didn't cost that much. Just with the savings of the energy efficiency, it was paid. Next slide. And then we see more and more options like this partner from our client here in Brazil as a solar EPC. They created solar panels, charger, and they have B-box batteries that operate off-grid solutions. So he has a lot of batteries for peak loading shifting during peak hours, but he reserves some batteries just for the charger. So this will be a huge solution because we're going to have this kind of virtual power plants all over the city. And, you know, with extreme weather events, every time we have floods and big rains and there's no energy, we have all these cars, taxis, police cars, people that can go and plug into traffic signals, into residential or commercial, which cannot stay with no energy. So these integrated solutions, in my opinion, are going to grow like crazy, especially because of the cost. You know, solar distributed generation in Brazil is like 25, sometimes even 40, 50% cheaper than the price we pay on the grid. So putting a solar project together with an electric vehicle improves your payback, makes your total cost of ownership much better. So these solutions will just grow as they are growing very fast all over the world. Next slide, please. And with that, we're going to have a completely change on the way that people use their vehicles. You know, electric vehicles are going to be the heart of this smart city, smart grid, smart housing, where people will use the vehicle to give back energy to the grid, use the vehicle for loading, and this bi-directional charging discharge solution. You have, of course, faster charger like our applications with 2 plugs for buses, 1 for cars, more residential, forklift. But the truth is that any electric vehicle will become a mobile battery to support their cities and their grid. Next slide, please. And this is basically because the cost of batteries are going down. You know, batteries a couple of years ago used to represent 50% of the cost of the bus, 60% in our case, as lithium iron phosphate batteries are a little bit more expensive than other chemistries. But the truth is that the battery price is reducing. You know, it came from more than $1,000 per kilowatt hour to maybe 200, 180 right now. And the International Energy Agency says that whenever this price reach lower than $120, $150 per kilowatt hour, this is going to be great. And international combustion engines are not going to be that profitable in comparison to electric vehicles. And as cobalt has been increasing and there's a shortage of cobalt supply over the world, we know, it's a very limited thing. All the manufacturers will bring solutions. And we believe our solution, the iron phosphate, will become an increasing powerful chemistry, just because of its stability of price. Iron, well, we have everywhere around the world. It's not a concern. The price doesn't go as high as other minerals. We have smaller supplies. So we believe we are very safe on that area. Next slide, please. And you can see how BYD has grown, and especially creating new battery capacity. So we know that we went from 10 giga, 16 this year, around 30 giga. We had the first energy storage systems back in 2010, big R&D projects with State Grid and all these utilities around the world. And they have been moving from frequency regulation, microgrids to very integrated solution, like the picture on the right, where we have solar panels, almost 50 megawatt hours of battery, and the capacity of BYD and other suppliers are increasing so much that we're going to be able to power as many electric vehicles as the market is able to buy. For example, we just inaugurated a new factory in Qinghai, 10 giga, and this year we are opening a new factory in Chongqing, right in the middle of China, more 20 giga. So one facility will be able to produce 20 giga, so it's a completely game changer. The production cost, this new facility in Chongqing is $1.5 billion investment, but it's much cheaper than it was in the past. Please. And we'll see that we are going to use these batteries also as a second life on energy storage systems. They're growing everywhere. We're going to have almost 1 gigawatt hour, maybe in this year, maximum next year. And right now, we don't have a value, how much these batteries will be worth in 5 years, 10 years. But what we know is that there will be a residual value and people will use for storage solutions. And this is really good because it's going to be an extra income to electric vehicles and to their owners. Next slide, please. And now we reach the last 2 slides just to show what are the big trends. We're talking about transformation in the auto sector. Everybody knows that. Electric vehicle, autonomous vehicle, shared mobility. But the truth is that the energy sector is passing through a huge revolution. The World Economic Forum, we are part of this working group, that they have this table that shows that because of decentralization, with decarbonization of energy, smart grid solutions, we're going to see a really fast process for digitalization, which will allow real-time automated communications and systems. And electric vehicle will be the heart of this integration between your house, the battery management system, the grid, the cell phone. I don't know who is going to win. Like if your cell phone will control your house, your car, and maybe the grid, or if it's going to be the car that will control your cell phone, your housing. But for sure, everything will be integrated. Everything will be together, and connectivity will play an even more important role as they are. Next slide, please. And I finish here my presentation just to show this slide because it's not Adalberto from BYD. Of course, I have a bias. I love electric vehicle. I believe in that. I run electric cars. We see the benefit, to reduce CO2, noise, improve the quality of public transportation in the city. But these trends are moving. For example, this report says that utilities in Latin America, Europe, and Asia lost $270 billion in market value in the last 10 years because of decentralization and digitalization process. So energy utilities, they're realizing their market share and their money, their revenues are being lost there So they have to find new solutions. So they're putting a lot of money, you know. Everybody might have seen, for example, Enel, the energy utility, they bought 100 buses from BYD and deliver in Santiago, in Chile. So the energy utility buy the bus, they make infrastructure, they put clean generation, and they rent the bus to the public operators. They're trying to find new areas for them. And they're big players. They're huge stakeholders in the energy automotive industry. They will be huge guys. So decentralization with digitalization will empower people and companies in order to think about this future. You know, vehicles will be more autonomous because we have to reduce traffic accidents. Shared mobility will play a huge role. You know, there's no solution for mobility based on private transportation, everybody having their own car running for 100% of their trips, you know, using less than 10% of the timing. But for sure, electrification will be the heart of this transformation for smarter cities, better cities, and for the future that we all want. So I'm pretty positive that our dreams, the dreams that our founder had 25 years ago of solar, cheap, affordable, clean energy, batteries to store energy from renewables, and electric mobility will play a role to transform ourselves in the future. Thank you.
All right, so those were some really informative insights from Adalberto. And after listening to your thoughts, I can surely say that the organizations in the EV industry will continue to unravel more and more opportunities in the coming years that will help them streamline the advancement in the battery technologies. Thank you, Adalberto and Ajay, for discussing inside the EV batteries of tomorrow so illustratively. It will be interesting to see how the EV industry will shape up in the upcoming years and how the automotive industry improves its reputation and tackles the sustainability crisis we face today. As we are running short of time with this, I declare the forum open for any questions from the listeners. I request the attendees to kindly type in the question on the Q&A option available on the bottom of your screen, and I'll be happy to pass the questions to the esteemed speakers present with us today. So here we have our first question of the webinar, and it is for Ajay from Michael Smith. Michael Smith writes, how has Norway managed to achieve such a high EV adoption even when the current EVs have so many drawbacks? So Ajay, will be really happy to hear your views on this question.
Sure, Albert. Hi, Michael. Thank you for the question. So yes, Norway has indeed set a benchmark in terms of EV adoption globally. Like if I'm right, in 2018, the EV sales contributed just less than 50% probably in the annual vehicle sales in Norway, and like that is a huge number actually because the nearest country is not even close. So like why has it happened, your question. So like I would say that I have already answered this question in my presentation, because I mentioned there that the current adoption of EVs has been dependent on government subsidies and tax exemptions, and that has been the exact reason why Norway has grown. So like, government has provided thousands of dollars in forms of direct cash incentives and tax exemptions, like even during the purchase or tax exemption during import. And apart from that, you get, you could say the road tax is reduced, or the parking for EVs has been made free. The tolls have been waived off, and several benefits like this, which have made the consumer adopt EVs much more easily than compared to other regions. But like just adding on to that, the government has put focus to achieve its very ambitious target of 100% EVs by 2025 in Norway. So such an ambitious target, and they've already started the EV adoption. And so now, like reading through the news, you'll understand that the government is now shifting its focus about using subsidies to investing in the charging infrastructure now. So that's it. I was able to answer your query.
All right. So thank you so much, Ajay, for that informative answer. We have another question from Morris, and this is for Adalberto. Adalberto Morris writes, how does a company like BYD target growth in a country like Brazil, where the EV market is at a nascent stage?
Hi, hello, Morris. Well, it's true that Brazilian government has not been as active as we would like in order to create incentives. The case of Brazil is a peculiar situation because of the strongness of biofuels, especially ethanol. So for light vehicle, ethanol already plays a big role. We believe, together with the part of the new government, that there is a complementary action between ethanol and electric mobility. So plug-in with ethanol will play a major role. And the truth is that although light passengers vehicles, sales are very small compared to the total market, buses and trucks, we are seeing good momentum in the Brazilian market, basically because the price of diesel has gone up. There's a big pressure to improve quality on some of these public transportation systems. And electric vehicle becomes a good solution to stabilize operational cost and have a better TCO, a total cost of ownership, which is lower in 10 years of operation. So you're right, for light passengers, small vehicles, it's still gonna take a little while for Brazilian market, other developing markets to grow. But for sure, in heavy duty, like buses and trucks, where we put most of our efforts here, we believe this market will grow dramatically. We're gonna leave from around 50 electric vehicle buses now in the street to more than 300 by the end of the year, maybe 500 next year. So the market is growing.
All right. So that was really informative. And thank you so much, Adalberto, for such an insightful answer on that question. As we are running short of time, we'll not be able to take any further questions. We're really sorry for that. So I'll have to end the Q&A session now. I believe we all had an interesting and informative webinar on electric vehicles today. And I would really like to thank both of our speakers for sharing their valuable thoughts on inside the EV batteries of tomorrow. I would also like to extend my thanks to all of our attendees for taking the time out of your busy schedule to be a part of this webinar. Thank you so much, everyone. We have got a really overwhelming response to registrations and questions that were put across during the webinar. With the help of Adalberto and also from our analyst at BIS Research, we'll try and answer all these questions and send it across via emails to each one of you. With this, I conclude today's webinar. Thank you everyone who attended, and I wish you all a wonderful week ahead. Thank you so much.